Hello and good evening. 60 days until I run the entire length of Germany. This is episode 4 of the self-documentation series for Project 61. Looking back, I've noticed that I've been a little all over the place in the last 2 episodes. And so today, in order to try and keep things brief and to be clear, so that this whole experience is more enjoyable to you and more educational and beneficial to me, I'm going to get right to the point right now. I want to speak about what it is I understand, my conceptualizations of the term higher self, the highest self, and thereby, in effect, faith in humanity. As a result of the first episode of this series, a good friend of mine, writer, creative, Jordi, texted me, and he shared with me that my faith in humanity, amongst other things, had an impact on him. Prior to him saying that, I never in my life have made it a conscious effort to it has never been made clear to me, not even by myself, that I do carry with me an extensive, a strong and rigorous belief and faith in us as a species. I do. I've thought about it. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I believe we are the most fascinating thing on this planet. When I was traveling across Europe, I did a 419-day solo hike across Europe on my own. A journey of solitude, I like to call it. It was a great time of my life. And I experienced many things. One of those things was the phenomenal book, A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. In the book, Viktor Frankl, in excessive details, shares his experiences in Nazi-occupied concentration camps. It is a book that made me cry a few times, a book that has made me angry a few times, but above all, a book that cemented, I believe, in me an understanding of how in-fucking-destructible we can be. I think if you aren't completely baffled and fucking amazed by how powerful we are, you lack understanding. You have failed to grasp the scope of our collective experience as living entities in history. What the human race has been through is wildly beyond belief. And for you to be here, for you to sit here right now and watch this video, for me to sit here right now and speak into a camera in a dark construction site, that is the result of generations and generations who have suffered and endured and have sacrificed and loved and protected and cared and hurt, but most of all loved, I believe. I don't see how that isn't a completely fascinating thing. It is wild to me, completely wild. Nothing to me is as impressive as the human spirit. And so to the concept of a higher self. Well, there's a man, his name is David. David would be the pronunciation he would use. And on Instagram, he goes by Recovering Overthinker, also on YouTube, by the way. I would implore you right now to pause this video and go over to Instagram or his YouTube, but I would recommend his Instagram first. Excuse me. And have a look through his content. I'm honest when I say it is arguably the healthiest follow you will be able to find on that app. Wildly beneficial to us for free, completely for free. It's fascinating. Anyhow, David, or the Recovering Overthinker, posted a video a while back in which late at night he's walking on the beach and he has a very dark voice, a very deep voice, a very manly voice, and his long dark hair, and he's speaking into his camera and he says something along the lines of, there would be no internal conflict and distress within you if there wasn't also within you, however deeply hidden, a higher ideal. This conflict and distress is a result of your understanding that between who you are right now and this higher ideal is a distance. He encourages you with this video to close that distance. So, in our modern day and age, I've noticed that young people like to say that they are, not always but often, they like to say that they are spiritually inclined, but not religious. Many people, I find, make that distinction, which I would criticize to some degree. I understand it, I do, but religion, when manifested healthily and lived properly, I believe is simply spirituality. Now, I'm not religious per se. My relationship to God and belief systems within the ramifications of a religion are still growing. I'm figuring them out. I do, however, understand quite clearly what I mean when I say or speak of the highest self. For me, how do I say this? Right. Let me put it this way. If you were to ask me, if anyone were to ask me whether or not I believe in God, I would say yes. But I would say yes with the intention of clarifying that when I say I believe in God, I say I believe in me. You see, to me, God is a frequency. God is a frequency at which I operate when I embody my very best self. Running to me, I've said this before, is much less a physical act and significantly more a spiritual one. Similarly to running, perhaps even more so, writing is where I can discover my own depths of my soul, of my being, of my past and my future to its most crass extent. So if someone were to say, do you believe in God? I would say yes. And I would clarify, I believe in me. I believe that when I embody my best, when I take responsibility, when I care for those for those whom I love, and I show up for myself, when I embody, according to my own standards and definitions, my very best self, I am in tune with the frequency that is God. Outside of that, perhaps yes, there is an energy, an entity, a being, to which we as a collective refer to as God. Perhaps. Though I take within that much less interest. And that takes us to the concept, my conceptualization of the highest self. For those of you who know me, you know that I am a very big rap fan. I love hip hop. My favorite rapper whose music I consume the most would probably be J. Cole. And in an interview a few years ago, he had a very good answer to, I believe he was asked about giving young people a piece of advice. And he said something along the lines of, I'm butchering what he said, but I'm going to give you my version of it. Think of yourself in the highest way possible. Envision yourself in your most flawless state. Be precise with that vision. Think clearly what you're envisioning. Be meticulous and rigorous with how clearly you can manifest that image in your own mind, and then go a little further than that. Go even beyond the point of reason. Be delusional, completely delusional with your conception of your best self. And consider that every single time when you engage in an interaction, in a bad habit, in any decision that is not good, and you hear a voice in the back of your head telling you, don't do this, that is you speaking to you across space and time from a higher level of consciousness, your highest self. I'm going to repeat that every single time that you are about to do something and you hear in the back of your mind, somewhere in your own head, a warning almost, not to do this. This could be as minuscule a task as anything. This could be you about to open Pornhub and masturbate. This could be you about to eat something you know you shouldn't be eating. This could be you sitting on the fucking toilet and shitting and scrolling through TikTok. This could be you texting that person back you know you shouldn't text back. This could be anything, completely anything. Consider that the second you have in the back of your mind that voice telling you, don't do this, at least entertain the possibility that that is you, across space and time, speaking to you now from a higher level of consciousness. Friedrich Nietzsche said, they fear their highest self, for when it speaks demandingly. Your highest self is going to be the voice of reason that you somewhere in the back of your head, however quietly, will hear whenever you consume brain-dead content. It's the voice you hear whenever you eat shit instead of eating something proper. It's the voice of reason you hear when you scroll through your phone at night, although you know you should be going to bed. It's the voice of reason you hear when you pursue that relationship with that specific someone that you know you shouldn't be pursuing because it's unhealthy, it's toxic, it's not beneficial, it's not good. Did you ever stop and wonder where that voice is coming from? I'm not saying adapt my mentality. I'm not saying adapt the way I see this. I'm not even saying you should agree with me. But I am saying that I believe wholeheartedly, genuinely, that you could be so much more than you are right now. I believe that to be the case for myself, and I believe that to be the case for any human being on this planet right now. My belief in your capacity to be the best you can be requires not of me to know your name, in no circumstance whatsoever. If you and I have nothing in common other than the fact that we are both human beings living and breathing on this planet, we already have so much in common. For we share a collective human history that to some degree or another is responsible for us being here right now. We are both part of the same family of living creature on this planet that has withstood and overcome wars, travesties, the most horrific and gruesome things you could possibly imagine. And we're fucking here, man. I'm going to share here a story. I'm going to do my best not to be emotional about this because I don't speak about this often and it gets me emotional every now and then. When I was 20 years old, this was in the spring of 2019, summertime 2019, I had a very strong depressive episode. I'm not exactly sure why, but I had heavily suicidal thoughts. What was scary about this experience was the fact that I couldn't understand why I was. This is what I thought back then. I couldn't understand why I was thinking the way I was thinking, which is flawed because thoughts are something you experience. You are not your thoughts. You are the entity that experiences the thoughts. There is a distinction. Be that as it may, I was 20. I didn't know that back then. So I thought, why am I thinking this way? And the fact that I could think in that way scared me. It genuinely scared me. And one day, I was driving a car. I had my own car back then. It was an older model of an Audi A3 in silver, gray silver. Anyhow, I drove home one day. It was a very sunny day. And I parked my car in front of my apartment building on the side of the road as all the other cars were parked. And I was a few weeks into experiencing these sorts of thoughts. And I was in the car and I was crying. And I was very afraid. And I felt very weak. And the tears were coming out of me aggressively. Like it wasn't like I had tears. I was aggressively crying, you know. And I was sat there behind the steering wheel. And I kept thinking to myself that I should turn the ignition back on, floor the gas pedal, and drive into the next car that's coming my way as quickly as I could. And again, I cannot explain why I was thinking that way, but even to have that thought in my mind scared the fuck out of me, and I was shaking. And as I grabbed my key, I had my phone plugged into the aux cable. And on my way home, I was listening to music very loudly. But I got back, and the car was off, and there was no music running, obviously, because the ignition was off. But I grabbed the key, and I turned the ignition on. Music hadn't started playing yet, and I get a message, a WhatsApp message on my phone. And I know I get a message because the notification sound was very, very loud. It shot through the whole car because I was listening to music very loudly. And I grabbed my phone, and I can't really make out what it says because I had so much water in my eyes. And I wipe my eyes and I look at my phone, and it was a message from a very good friend of mine, Moritz, whom I had texted, I believe, a day prior, and shared with him that I'm depressed, and I don't know what to do, and I'm afraid, and And he texted me a long, elaborate message of encouragement. And to this day, I have this message. I have this message saved in my phone. I very rarely go back to it. But I read the message, and I cried more because it was so beautiful. And I think I read it like 5 times. And after almost an hour, I got out of the car, and without knowing it, I had completely forgotten what it was like to smell things and take in color. So I get out of the car, and very aggressively, I can tell how vividly green the trees are, and how vividly blue the car next to me was, and how warm it was, and I could smell fresh air. And I realized in that moment I hadn't noticed any of these things for a good 2 weeks. I say all of that because I believe the effect we have on others is the most valuable currency that there is in this world. It is the one currency no one will ever be able to take from you, ever, under no circumstance. It is always and entirely up to you, how you treat others, how you react to others. And I'm no saint. I've treated people poorly, and I've been a bad person. It's part and parcel of existing, I suppose. But that day, Moritz saved my life. And it took me a while to learn, but under those circumstances, absolutely nothing matters except for the spark we can ignite in someone else. So for example, you might think yourself useless, unworthy, weak, with no future and no potential and no ambition. You might think your further existence is pointless. you might think you shouldn't exist. If in my circumstance all it took was one person to give me words of encouragement, to wake me up out of that circumstance, don't you dare ever understate the effect you can have on someone's life just by encouraging them. Naturally, Moritz was a good friend, and of course his words carried a weight to them, but they had the effect on me because they were genuine and true, and well, it's been 5 years now, and I very rarely think of that day, of that whole experience. I'm so far past it and beyond it. It's difficult for me to imagine what I was thinking, what I was experiencing back then in terms of the quality of my thought, but your life isn't pointless. You're not weak. You might feel shitty, which we all do. Perhaps all you need is encouragement. I implore you to start learning to give yourself that encouragement in times of need. There isn't always going to be a Moritz in your life to tell you how enchanting you are. Which, no doubt, you are. I'm completely convinced because you're a human being. That day, with that short message, Moritz embodied his highest self, even if briefly. And the pursuit of that highest self, the elimination of that distance between who you are right now and who you could be then, the pursuit of that distance is constant. It never ends. It's not supposed to end. That's the point of life. That's the point of growth. For anyone who knows, Matthew McConaughey's Oscar acceptance speech from the year 2014 incorporated the same logic, the same method of explanation. He said when he was 15 years old, someone important in his life came to him and asked him who's his hero. And he said, I don't know, I have to think about that. And 2 weeks later, he came back to them and he said, they said, do you know who your hero is? And he said, yeah, it's me in 10 years. 10 years later, 25, that same person asks him, so are you your hero? And he said, no, not even close. Because my hero is me at 35. And so every day, every week, every month, every year, even though he is in pursuit of his hero, he's never going to be his hero. He's never going to chase down his hero. And that's not the point. The point is, when you're 25 years old, and your hero is you at 35, it's your responsibility and obligation to be that person when you're 35. There's a reason you can envision that person that so clearly. There's a reason you can feel so fucking good when you're following that person. There's a reason for it. You can make so much of this life. And when you're 35 and you feel like you failed, okay. You have another fucking 50 years to go. He who tries cannot fail. He who tries cannot fail, for the person who you become in the pursuit is the person who succeeds. Success is the pursuit, the embodiment of the work and the attitude needed to pursue. I can run 61 marathons in 61 days, and at the end be the man who ran 61 marathons in 61 days. I take no interest in being celebrated for the 61 marathons. I take interest in becoming the man who can run those 61 marathons. I take interest in being the man who can wake up every single day and pursue that goal for 61 days, regardless of what the world throws at me. The pursuit is the success. And I will get to that finish line, and I will be asked by people, how was it? How do you feel? And I will miss the pursuit. The completion of that goal will never fulfill me as much as the pursuit of that goal. We live for the pursuit. And part of that pursuit is to encourage others on their journey. We are one collective. There are people I don't like. There are people I avoid. Absolutely. There are people I don't think much of. There are people I dislike, heavily dislike. That does not negate the fact that I have full confidence that they have the capacity to embody the highest of virtues. Anyway, I said I will keep this short, and this is the longest video I've done. Fuck me. Yeah, well, anyhow. If I leave you with anything, I'll leave you with this. That voice in the back of your head is demanding, but it's for your own good. Remember, everyone benefits from your best. If you can embody your very best, if you can try your very best, if you can manifest into this world your very best, everyone benefits. Everyone. Everyone. If you're a father of two, and you get your fucking shit together, that will have an effect on them for the rest of their lives. If you're a brother of a younger brother, and you embody your best, that will have, to some degree or another, an effect on his entire life. Looking back upon yesterday and my discussion with him in the evening, our argument, I was in the right logically, but I was in the wrong spiritually, and I'm going to apologize. There are certain Stoic virtues I want to embody, and I wasn't embodying them in that confrontation. So tomorrow, I'm going to go up to them and I'm going to apologize. And I'm going to try my best to embody my best, manifest my best into this world, ask for his forgiveness, and tell him moving forward that I will do my best not to let it happen again. That's just one example of many ways in which you can turn your fucking life around. And you can. Because you're a human being. We do great things. It's what we do. On that note, I wish everyone a good night, a wonderful day, and as always, much love.